Good morning and welcome to Convocation. We have a few announcements this morning from Mason Bullen, Renee Stuckey, and Janet Fulmer. Please come on down.
All right. I'm here with Yop again. I need everybody's quick involvement. So if you could just look at me for a sec, get back to your phones after, okay? Raise your hand if you need a Convo credit. Come on. I know there's more. I see so many hands, guys. I have such good news for you. This Thursday, March 6th, 7 to 9 p.m., Yop and Divco are partnering for an open mic night. It's called Yop Out Loud. Okay, so this doesn't necessarily mean like we're just gonna do poetry and stuff. We're gonna have comedy, we're gonna have guitars. Jorge, where you at? I know you play guitar, come on down. You can do anything that you want on that stage, and we're also gonna have a lot of stations for you to create poems. It's gonna be a lot of fun, and these said poems will be an automatic submission to Yop. So should be a lot of fun. First 40 people that show up get free hot chocolate and Divco shirts. So yeah, also follow us on Instagram, Bethel College _Yop. That is about it. March 24th is also our deadline for all submissions, so just a quick reminder about that.
Everybody. So my favorite time of the year is upon us, which is research season. Yes, thank you. Whether it's finding sources for like your critical writing paper, your senior seminar, anywhere in between, that's what the librarians are here for, so we'd be happy to help you with that. I'm kind of the first line of defense on that, but any librarian in the place can help you. Our student employees are also trained to help, so you can walk in, come to my desk. I'm under the Ask a Librarian sign on the main floor. You can also email me or scan the QR code to set up a one-on-one research consultation. I'm really happy to help. I also can help with other parts of the research process like idea generation, search term generation. I can also help you on the other ends with citations and that kind of a thing. So reach out, and I'm really, really happy to help. Thanks.
Good morning. Wanted to remind you guys, if we could get the slide up for the climate survey, please. We'll be sending out a climate survey to all the students later today. And so we're asking if you guys would take 15 minutes or so and fill this out. It would be really helpful. The climate survey talks about all facets of campus. So do you feel safe? Do you feel like you have a way of belonging? Do you have needs that are being met? Do you know about our services that we offer? Just all those kind of things. So we would just ask if you guys would do that. You're going to have a little over a week to do that. It's going to be closed next Tuesday. So we thought this would be maybe a good time with you guys not having class tomorrow. Might be an opportunity for you to hop on and do this during time tomorrow. So if you guys have questions, reach out to anybody on Title IX, but we would like to just let you know it is totally anonymous. One last thing, if you get started in the survey and you decide for whatever reason you can't finish it, if you can at least go to the very end and click submit, then that way what questions you have answered, we will get that data. If you guys don't submit, we don't get anything you've put in there. So that is one thing we would ask. So thank you very much, and we appreciate your help.
Thank you for those announcements. One more quick note. The Exploring Christian Mission course runs this May term. You can get either Bible and Religion GE credit for it or Cross-Cultural Learning GE credit for it. We have some more details for that course now. It will include a 1-week travel component to the Tucson area, which will include an excursion to Oak Flat and then also to the border. So if you're interested in that course, please be on the lookout for an email that will come out later today, hopefully. And also come see me if you're interested and want to get connected up with some funding assistance for that class. Well, last spring, as many of you know, Bethel College received a generous grant from the Council of Independent Colleges through the Network for Vocation in Undergraduate Education and funded by the Lilly Endowment to help us launch our Vocation Seminar course, which all sophomores take. Part of this grant also provides for a 4-part speaker series over 2 years to help the rest of our community, not just the folks taking Vocation Seminar, reflect on vocation. Vocation is about opening yourself up to being grasped by a sense of purpose and calling to contribute meaningfully to the world around you in deep and lasting and good ways. It's often something felt deep inside based on values and commitments and dreams and gifts, but also something that comes from outside, from your community, your faith. Could be your job, but that's only a part, and vocation isn't just about money making. It's also about things like story and character, family, friendships, neighbors, religious involvement, civic engagement, and much more. Things well worth pondering. As we prepare to welcome our speaker for this morning, I'd like to invite you to join me in 30 seconds of silence and centering. So would you please turn your attention away from screens and devices, from neighbors and conversations, and to 30 seconds of paying attention to your breath. Please join me in 30 seconds of silence and centering. And may that breath, that very good breath, enliven your life this day and this week. We're delighted this morning to welcome Shannon Dicus, who will help us to reflect on vocation. Shannon currently serves as the Vice President for Student Affairs, Equity, and Belonging at Eastern Mennonite University in Harrisonburg, Virginia, one of our sister institutions. And in fact, several Bethel students were out at EMU just last weekend for the Intercollegiate Peace Fellowship Conference. Prior to EMU, Shannon was a pastor, and before that, a high school educator. Shannon received her seminary degree from Christian Theological Seminary in Indianapolis, and her Doctor of Ministry degree in Public Theology from United Theological Seminary in Minnesota. She is a spiritual director and author of 2 books and counting, and serves on multiple boards and committees, and we are delighted to have her come and join us today. Infused in all of Shannon's work is a sense of calling, vocation, both her own and accompanying others on their vocational journey. This morning she speaks to us on You Have Permission, Finding Our Voice in Our Purpose. Let's give a warm Thresher welcome to Shannon Dicus.
Good morning, y'all. And thank you, Peter. He just made me write another book, didn't he? He was like 2 books and counting. All right. Thank you for the invitation to be here, the opportunity to speak with you. Peter, your invitation, your hospitality has been wonderful. Thank you, Cheryl, for also your hospitality. I never want to forget the tech folks who helped make things like this happen. So thank you, Michael and Sarah, for your support this morning. I'm going to jump in, y'all. And I first want to get a little bit of info from y'all. And I'm going to do maybe a little walking. Thank you. Okay. So y'all are on your screens, you're on your computers, and I know, so I work at a university, I know how to do this. I know that you can do multiple things at the same time. So all I want you to do is be able to do both at the same time. You can do that, you can listen, you can engage. I get to talk about vocation and purpose today. When we talk about those words, it's been a part of the conversations that you all been having on campus. What are the other words that pop into your mind? Yell back at me. When we think vocation, purpose, what else comes to your mind?
Career.
Career, thank you. Ministry, I heard something else. Values, okay, yes. Passion, absolutely. Any other words come to your mind? Calling, absolutely. These are all really big words, right? Vocation, purpose, calling, values. These are words that have a whole lot of definitions, a whole lot of meanings. They mean different things to many of us. And so when we get to this conversation, it's loaded. There's a lot of thinking, there's a lot of ideas a part of it. And I want to talk a little bit today about how we start to find ourselves in some of these words, in some of this conversation. And part of what you'll see here is naming. So talking about vocation, talking about calling, it's all these words, and it's loud. Like all these words coming together, thinking about what we feel called to, what our purpose is. Those are all really significant ways for us to think about how we make sense of what we want to do with our lives. And sometimes, with all the words, with all the noise, it's hard to hear ourselves. It's hard to hear our own voices in what we feel like is coming at us and what we feel like are decisions that we need to make and what we feel like are a part of the obligations that we have. And so what I want to do today is help us start to think a little bit about how we make sense of the noise and how we balance or how we even offer our own voice to what we're hearing and what we're listening. Part of the way that I've gotten to this conversation is from my own story. You've heard that I work at EMU. I'm one of the administrators there. This has been a journey over 20 years of me figuring out who am I really, and who do I want to be, and how do I figure out how to do that? I started off, grew up in a family that was very Christian, very churchy. My grandfather was the pastor of the church that I grew up in, and so it was almost inevitable that I would continue and follow in that line of work and in vocation. And I did everything I could. I actually ended up living in a whole nother country so I could figure out how not to be a pastor. And I got there, and God was still like, "Hey, boo, what we doing?" And I'm standing here talking to you all about what it means to figure out who you want to be and how you want to be who you want to be. And this is my very favorite thing to do in life. I figured out how to find my own voice in what God was asking me to do, and not what my grandfather wanted me to do, not what my mom wanted me to do. But it's been a lot of work. It's been a lot of self-reflection, a lot of opportunity to really pay attention to what my voice is in the work that I've been doing. It's crazy. Part of my story includes legacies of my family. You'll see these strips of pictures here. That's my cousin, my uncle, my grandfather, my great-grandfather, my cousin, and me, and my mom, and my grandmother. They've literally created a project, my mom and my uncle in their free time because they're church nerds. They've literally created a project talking about we are children of the church, this legacy of what it means to do this work. And so I'm saying all this to say, like, sometimes the obligation and the responsibility of who we are and who we feel called to is coming at us from so many different directions, and it feels really heavy and loud that we have to work pretty hard to be able to find our own voice and what we want to do. Then I found this resource. It's called the Journal of Radical Permission. And some of the questions that this journal begins with are ones I want to share with you all, and then some ideas that I want to flesh out. The Journal of Radical Permission starts with questions that say, are there parts of you that are hidden to maintain approval? And what if you didn't have to? I realized that there was a part of me that, like, every morning on my way to work, I turn on a little bit of rap, and I turn it up really, really loud, because that's what gets me hyped, that's what gets me in my vibe, that's what I know can give me the energy that I need for work. And sometimes I turn it up, and then I turn it back down, because I'm like, somebody might hear me, and who might hear me, and what they gonna say? But there are parts of us that we try to hide because we're not sure what other people will think. What if we have permission to be the people that we fully are, to be the folks that can grasp the energy of who we want to be, to lean into the permissions of living into our fullest self? Another question from the Journal of Radical Permission asks, what if we embrace the neglected or destroyed parts of ourselves? Sometimes who we are becoming in life means that we're low-key a poet, and we like to sit and write, and it's beautiful, and we haven't told anybody. And that's a part of us that we're just kind of pushing down in ourselves. And what if we let ourselves embrace that part of who we are, no matter what it meant about what other people thought? What if we had permission to be parts of ourselves that we're not sure other people are going to embrace? But what if we let those grow? What if we let those emerge instead of pushing those down? Fundamentally, the journal asks, what if we could just be ourselves, whatever that looked like, and what if there's nothing to fix? And what if being called and who we are as the people that we are called to be is exactly that, and that being who we fully are is the ministry that we are called to be? So I want to start with some of these questions. I want to start with what it means to be navigating our yeses and our nos, based on the reality that there's a lot that goes into what we hear. And I don't stand here pretending like I can undo all of the voices and the loudness of vocation. I stand here saying that my family is still around, and they still have very clear hopes and expectations for me, and I figured out how to manage some of their expectations and some of the responsibilities that they would want for me as I live out my life and my call. And I figured out how to name my voice and how to navigate my yeses and my nos from what I've heard from myself and the folks who have helped me discern. So I'm not offering these things naming that anything will go away, but I'm inviting us to think about what are the other parts of our lives and what are the parts of our stories that we can help embrace that help us balance some of what we hear as we think about vocation and call. The Journal of Permission highlights a couple of ideas I want to bring to you all. It talks about 3 critical pieces here that I'll flesh out a little bit. There's a whole lot more here to dig into, but I want to kind of hit high level. What I want to invite us to think about is believing in permission in what is within us first. That if we believe ourselves to be wonderfully created by God and know that we are fully sacred, that every part of who we are, every cell of who we are, so even getting anatomical and biological with every cell of who we are has possibility, and there's a bunch of cells within us that are emerging to become and to be. And if we think about that, and as we think about not just one call, not just one purpose, not just one vocation, how do we think about all the things that are possible from within us? Think about that as what you're holding within your body. Another part of this is, what does it mean to think about being fully yourself, embracing your full heart, your gifts, even your pain and your brilliance and your love? So not trying to fragment yourself and say, here are the things I'm good at, and I'm gonna be good and do good from these things that I know other people will celebrate, but here's all of who I am, and here's how I can live out my call, live out my purpose, and know that like I'm bringing all of myself to what I'm imagining I can be in the world. And then thinking about how we are free as we are in relationship with other folks. We don't do anything good by ourselves, y'all. Everything good we do is with other people and in conversation with other people. And it's in the wisdom of our being together that we get to make these connections and that we identify our vocation and our purpose and our call. And so when I put all of these things together, I want to summarize it in a way that maybe helps this make sense a little better. So when I consider how we might think about vocation and adding in this element of permission that allows us to hear our own voices in this work, I talk about vocation as a sacred conversation that we get to have with God and with other people so that we can become our most authentic selves, so that we can be good with others, with ourselves, and in the relationships that we create together. All right, I wanna pick your brains a little bit. First, take a minute and start with the person right next to you. I've been talking about permission, and I've been talking about the ways that we might live more fully in this idea of permission. Who are the people in your life who you think, when you think of these people, they live with permission to be who they know that they fully are, that they are free to express their heart, their love, their pain, their brilliance. These are the people who, when I look at them, I know that they are the fullness of who they are. Take 2 minutes with the person right next to you. I want you all to, between yourselves, come up with at least one person, and then I'm gonna ask you to yell it back at me. So take 2 minutes. Who'd you come up with? Yell some names back at me. Jesus! Who came with Jesus? Yes! I'm sorry, I got caught in Jesus and I didn't hear nothing else. Yell again at me. Who? Yell out, LeBron? Okay. Maybe? More, please. Say it again. Yes. I don't know that name. I hope to learn more. Oh, it's you. Congrats. All right, tell me more. Okay. I heard mom. Who else? Okay. It sounds like there are some folks in your lives who you can look at and who you can tell have figured out who they are authentically and how that lives out in who they are called to be and how they live out their lives. I was definitely going to help y'all with some examples that definitely included Jesus and definitely included Lizzo and yes, because how do you just show up in the world and be a flautist and dope and defy the ways that people want to look at your body and do all those things at the same time? There are ways that people are living out their full selves while they are also doing really meaningful and good things in the world. So I want to talk about permission and the ways that you have permission. I have four permissions that I want to highlight for you all today as you think about how do you begin to listen for your own permission and the way that you begin to integrate that into your vocation discernment. So I got 4. And I'm quizzing you at the end. Now, permission number 1. You have permission to not know. So a lot of times when we come to this conversation about what we're supposed to be, who we're supposed to be, there's this assumption that like we have it figured out. And that's a lie. We have a lot of questions about who we want to become and what we want to do. Sometimes we doubt the reality of how we get there. Those are normal, those are healthy, and they're actually really valuable for helping you to figure out who you want to be and how you become it. We get caught up with the word "I don't know" because there's all kind of connotations that we're not smart or that we haven't figured things out or we don't have our life under control when we use the phrase "I don't know." It's a meaningful phrase. It's a full sentence, and it's helpful for us to give us space to keep thinking, to keep praying, to keep figuring things out. When we think about not knowing, think about mystery and leaving space for what we don't know, those are really sacred spaces, opportunities for us to ask for wisdom from others, from God, and know that those are important spaces to be. How many of you all, when you got here on your first day to Bethel, somebody asked you, like, what your major is? How many people had that question? What's your major? Yep. Because we get to college and people expect us to know what we want to do with life. Expect us to know, like, what it means to have things figured out all the time and already. I want to talk about what it means to, like, let go of some of that certainty and like allow ourselves to live in the not knowing. Sometimes we allow ourselves to over-rely on intelligence, to push ourselves toward needing to figure things out, instead of allowing us to be able to learn and know in multiple ways and to gather information from different places. Sometimes I can come with a whole lot of information that I've learned from somewhere, and it's helpful in a conversation, but sometimes I have a feeling in my gut that gives me wisdom, that tells me information that I need to know that's different from what I know in my head. Information comes from multiple places of our body, and information has to be holistic in order for us to figure these things out. There's not always a knowing and a logic that we can communicate in figuring these things out. I want to talk about change and mistake making. We get to college and folks think we got it figured out. We're supposed to be able to go on a very clear trajectory toward our classes, toward our major, and towards graduation. And when we make mistakes, there's consequences, there's weakness associated with that. But realistically, it's one of the ways we learn. By making mistakes, by changing our mind, it becomes a part of how we figure things out. And so I want to undo some of the negative connotations around that and give us permission to not know and permission to make mistakes. We don't let mystery live in our heads and in our decision making. There's not a space for us to not know. And we push it to the side, and when we don't know, we get afraid of that. But what I want us to consider is, what does it mean to be curious about what we don't know? And then maybe even be courageous and say, I'm just gonna sit here, or I'm gonna try to figure it out as I go. So I want you to think about what it means to be okay with not knowing, and what it means to consider not being as certain as everybody else wants you to be, and letting that be okay. Permission number 2 is you have permission to change. Some of the facts here, when we think about change, you'll see on the board, the average person changes jobs 12 times in their lifetime. 12 times. Over the course of your working career, think about 12 different changes that you'll make. When we drill down into that information, between the ages of 25 and 34, we see a change at a median rate of 2.8 years. As we get older, comparatively, then people who are older remain at their jobs a little bit longer. But as you get younger, in your early professional careers, you can expect to change your mind many times, about every 3 years. That's not a part of what we talk about and normalize when we're thinking about what we feel called to. We often talk about this being a very static thing, that you figure out one major, you figure out one job, and that's what you'll do for the rest of your life. And that's not fully true. We get to change our minds, we get to shift vocations, we get to add on to what we already know, and those are ways that we get to have permission in what we're called to. One more time, I want you to talk to the person next to you, and you got 2 minutes. When you were a kid, everybody had a, this is what I want to be when I grow up. What was one of those things? For me, I wanted to be a firefighter. And I can still see parts of that in the work that I do now. I participate in a lot of the crisis response on campus, and I'm very comfortable doing that work, and I see the firefighter part of me in what I do. What's one of the things that you thought you wanted to be when you were growing up, and how do you start there? Just 1 minute with the person next to you. What's one of the things you thought you wanted to be when you grow up? Go ahead and talk real quick. Okay, pause. In what you just named, how is that connected to what you're majoring in now or what you feel excited about? That job that you might have named 10 years ago, how's that connected to where you see energy in your life right now? Take another minute. I hope that in some of your conversation, you realize that there were a lot of really spectacular things that you dreamed of when you were young and wanted to think about who you wanted to become, and those things will keep happening. And there's still parts of you that are connected to that, and it may look really different, but it keeps evolving and it keeps changing, and that will keep happening even when you're 40 and you're 45 and you're 50. Those same ideas will evolve into what you want to be as you grow and you change and you figure out who you want to keep becoming. You have permission to change. The third permission I want to name to you all is you have permission to gather wisdom. So much of our world is circling around individualism, ways we are separated as human beings, and just how we live as individuals, how we live socially, and how we live spiritually. If you look at some of the facts here on the screen, you'll see that statistically 1 in 5 people don't live near any of their extended family. So we're like physically separated from the folks that we are in family with. When we look at the church engagement over the last 2 decades, it's down 42%. And so even the ways that people have connected socially and in community is decreasing. And then when we think about all of our self-care and spiritual practices conversations, all of these conversations are about things that we go out into the woods and do by ourselves, or that we do in our inner lives. And all of this is language about what we do on our own and how we do this by ourselves. And And we don't do anything good by ourselves, y'all. Everything we grow into is with other people. And so when we think about ways we want to discern who we are, there's a lot of people around us that have really good perspective and wisdom in who they see in us and how they see these things in us and how we can grow. One of my favorite tools to consider is these circles of support. When you look at this visual, you'll recognize that there are layers of circles that we can glean from as we think about who are the folks that I want to invite into questions and conversation with me. Not everybody gets to the center. Not everybody gets to the most vulnerable parts. The inside of the circle is a circle of intimacy. And that's the place where really close friends who can hold all of our vulnerabilities live. And then we circle our way out to circles of friendship and circles of participation and even circles of exchange. But these are all important elements of the ways we relate to other people and opportunities to welcome discernment. There's questions for the folks that you are intimate with and who can say, do you think I have enough courage to do this and to be this? And then there's folks who are in your circle of exchange who you can say, so this is your job. Can you tell me a little bit about what is meaningful for you? There's different kind of questions that we have for different people in our circles and ways we can glean wisdom. We don't have to be as separate as we are. The culture around us is suggesting that we need to be more individualized and more separate and figure things out on our own. And the real truth, the real value in who we are as human beings is that there's wisdom and there's value in using each other and in benefiting from each other and what we can learn. And so we have permission to gather wisdom from each other. The last permission I want to share with you all is that radical permission calls for radical spiritual practices. A lot of what we do to find God, to find ourselves, is wrapped up in traditional spiritual practices. We pray, we meditate, we do all types of worship and service, and those I'm not critiquing in any way. Those are ways that we deeply and truly do find God and find one another. And in order to continue into opportunities for finding radical permission, there are other ways to also be seeking God and one another. And I want to encourage you and even push you towards opportunities where you would consider listening and honoring your body. What are the ways that your body talks to you? When I get nervous, I can feel it in my knees. When I get excited, like my heart beats a different kind of way. Where are the ways that you know that you're nervous and excited, and how do you honor your body and listen to it and help you do some of that listening? Practicing courage means that you recognize that there's something you really want to do and you're afraid, and you do it afraid. Sometimes we get the opportunity to, isn't there an open mic night coming in a couple days? Isn't that what we heard? You probably got something written in a notebook that you want to share, but you're afraid. What if you do it afraid? Just to see what it's like to stand up in front of a group of people and share what you believe is beautiful and what you know is beautiful. Think about what are the ways that you get to practice rest. What are the ways that you get to have permission to do some of this meaningful practice and engagement with yourself, with God, and with each other? I think I will stop there. I have one more closing piece, but maybe we can stop there for some Q&A.
All right. If we could have the microphones, please. Raise your hand if you've got a question.
This on? Okay. I have two, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. My first one was about the challenges of certainty and vocation. I was wondering, what do you think the source or sources are to those challenges?
Yeah. I think that when we when we know, we can remain in control of what's around us. So having ideas, feeling certain about them means that we can manage our environment and manage the decision making around us. And if we let ourselves not know, if we let ourselves be uncertain, we believe we have less control about what's around us. And so I think, in a way, where we desire to make sure everything is managed around us, we believe that we know more than we maybe should know. Yeah.
Thank you. My second one, just the point about individualism and self-care was really interesting to me, and I was wondering, like, how would we go about practicing self-care without being super individualistic about it?
Yep.
I'd be
Yep.
curious.
So part of my story is that I am a spiritual director, and I lean into what it means to do communal spiritual practices. And so there's opportunities for us to, in all of the ways that we've developed spiritual practices that we do by ourselves, there's ways for us to really integrate other people and other wisdom in what we do. We've kind of structured the ways that we go to God to be kind of this one-on-one, instead of thinking about what it means to be community, to be village, and to trust the wisdom of other people. So think Sunday morning, and when folks gather in a church for worship together, everybody's kind of bringing their own wrestlings that they have to God and with each other. And what if what we did on Sunday mornings was to wrestle together with what we each brought, instead of kind of bringing what we brought, praying about it ourselves, taking it back out with us. But there are ways for us to think way more communally than what we do in real life.
Thank you.
What questions do y'all have, or comments, or disagreements?
What is one practice that you would have to combat certainty of vocation?
That's a good question. I think that for many of us, part of the challenge in certainty is thinking that, like, there's only one thing we can be, instead of believing that there are many things we can be. It's not that I want to undo, like, you're a bio major and you want to go to medical school and you want to be a doctor. Like, that's true. And, like, what else is true? Like, do you also want to be a musician? And do you also want to be an orchestra? Like, how do we let ourselves allow multiple things to be true, instead of believing that, like, there is one thing that is true and that, like, we have to go clear on in that direction? How do we let ourselves expand into all the pieces that we are? That was a really good question. Thank you. All right, I wanna, let's see. I always have two ways to close. I'm gonna go with my first one. Maybe you all know Morgan Harper Nichols there. She is an artist. She has several books where she integrates both her art and her writing. She's also neurodivergent in some really cool and honest ways. If you haven't met her work, this is a piece of it. And this is a prayer and a hope that I will leave for you all. I hope you can find peace while breathing. I hope you can find peace while breathing deep, even without knowing what comes next. I offer this to you all from my own heart to yours, recognizing that there is peace in our ability to breathe within ourselves, to breathe with each other, to breathe with God. And there's also ways we don't know what's next, and there's still peace. There's still peace to be found when we haven't gotten there. So may this blessing land in your hearts, and I hope that in all the ways that you all have questions, I'm around for several more hours today. I hope we can connect one-on-one, and I hope that you bring this to some of the work and the conversation that you're doing in class and having with each other. So bless you all in all of your work. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shannon, for coming to share with us today. Convocation scanners, would you please make your way down to the front and begin dismissing? As they do, let's offer one more round of applause for Shannon Dykes.